Castellanos, a three-step drop, feeling pressure, rolling out to his left, being chased. Castellanos hit as he throws, ball came out. Virginia's got it. And it's Jonas Syker breaking free. 10-5, play that good old song. Touchdown, Virginia.
That's the call, brought to you by John Freeman, the voice of UVA athletics. Man, that has to get you excited. Great to see the Cavs clip the Birds' wings in the second half and run away with it 24-14. I'm here with Statman Sean, and maybe I'm a fan Mills. Well, boys, I'm sure you didn't think you would have RFK on the pod, but it's tough making a living with a cold. You have to use your voice. I have to say it's great to see the ball roll our way this time. And with that, I want to toss it to you, Sean. What did you think of that first half?
Well, if you want to jump first half specifically, I was not a fan. I was ready to jump off my couch and throw
ready to jump
everything
in
out the
his
window.
Mills.
I mean, my goodness, I was fired up. We had three 3-and-outs to start the game. We had 2 weeks to prepare for this Boston College team, and that's the drives y'all open this game up with. And then you also give up a 75-yard touchdown to start the game. I don't know what our team was doing. I don't know if we were rusty. I don't know if we were still sleeping in from being on the bye week, but that was absolute pitiful. I was beyond mad seeing how we started this game off. I mean, we got one first down on the first play and then no more yards, punt. And then we let BC run the ball. 9-play, 78-yard drive to score. It looked like we never played football before. It was just terrible. Just absolutely terrible. Again, you look at it and it looks like play calling, and that was just trash. 2 weeks. You could have scripted 30 plays, and we had 3 straight 3-and-outs. So the offense looked flat. Granted, we were dealing with injuries. Just from there, it looked flat. Now, I'll get positive. We turned it around. We definitely dominated the second half and everything else, but it's just from there, I was just not happy with the start, and that's not how you come off a bye week. And if we play that way coming off our next bye week, when we go into Pittsburgh, it's going to be a long night for us. So, yeah, first half terrible. Second half we turn it around. So, big win. I've
got to say, in the first half, I was, a little concerned. I started getting those vibes pretty early. Just reminded me a lot of Maryland, where we kind of just came out weirdly flat. I was like, oh, we're in for a long one. So, it looked a little bit different. I think we talked about it. I think it was a little bit disguised. It came a little bit different in the second part of the first half. They started getting the ball up the field, making the defensive stops, but they just hadn't quite got it figured out on some of the play calls. And, they made some gutsy decisions early, it seemed like. But, they just were settling and there was just something missing that I think they took into the locker room with them going into the second half. But, yeah, I mean, I was just a little disappointed, a little weary. Like, man, this is just going to be such a flat, boring game where UVA just stutters and just terrible play calls. But the ball finally rolled our way. We didn't need the refs to bail us out like some other teams. But, I don't know, Mills, what did you think about the first half?
So kind of piggyback off of what Sean said, we got the win, which it's good. I do think that we played a complete 30 minutes in the second half. Now that first half, as we're talking about, Sean hit it on the head, like flat. You had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. Our scripted plays looked terrible, and it, like you said, Boston College looked like they were going to just run away with it.
Seems like they held the scripted plays for the second half.
Yeah.
The plays that Tony wrote up for Dez.
Yeah, and I know, getting to that, I think we were all in a group chat, and I was saying fire Dez. I still think so. I don't know if Tony Elliott came into halftime and says, I'm going to start making the play calls. I have no idea. Don't quote me on that. But it definitely switched, and we looked better. We looked more composed out there in the second half. But we just got ran over by Boston College and then got beat in the middle, and we just couldn't get anything offensive, and the defense just looked tired with their hands on the hips, like in the first quarter. And I thought this was going to, like you said, going to be a long, drawn-out game. And I was going to say, well, I was ready to explode, but we switched.
Well, the defense had their hands on the hips. They were out there for 10 minutes in the first quarter. So it definitely started out rough. But again, we started turning the tide. I think, we got down quickly 14-0. And you think, here we go. Because this is the first game that's a true test. And we're like, man, we're down 14-0.
I mean, you got to remember, Boston College was ranked like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, they were a previously ranked team coming in. They were 4-1, played some good teams. This is more that program winning game that moving you forward, because this is an actual competitive team in the ACC. When you talk about Boston College versus Wake, you got a really good ball coach over there at Bill O'Brien. So we did come into our own. We finally, in the second quarter, we started getting some things going our way, and we started putting some drives together that actually made us look like we're a football team. And, we had a 14-play drive. Granted, we only went 39 yards, and we had to settle for a field goal. I mean, that was we started chewing up the clock, and we talked about that in the past. We got to sustain these drives. I talked about it last week. The keys to victory were establish the run, win the turnover margin, and sustain drives. And I think we did all three of those things in this game. We definitely won the turnover margin. We turned them over 3 times in the second half. That was huge. If you look at that, I mean, that's all the momentum. And Castellanos, he started. We weren't sure who was going to play. He started out well, and then I think we forced some errors by him. I mean, he fumbled the ball for a fumble touchdown by Sanker, which was huge. You heard that by John Freeman on the start of the podcast. I mean,
Cam Robson with the FIFA kick.
Oh, yeah, it went off of him.
Yeah.
So, the announcers are thinking it was out of bounds and it was going to be down, but different angle showed otherwise. And then I think we kind of got into our own and we settled. So and we talked about Ezaraku. He was an NCAA sack leader coming into this week, and we gave up 1 sack to him, and that was the second play of the game, and he didn't have any other sacks. Now, he did make a difference in the game. We had to chip block him most of the time. He was able to get pressure, but he didn't dominate us, so I think that we did a good job, and the line held together enough for us to pull this one out. And again, defense really stepped up and took care of it for us. You also look at it, 15 points off of turnovers. The games that we lost to Maryland, we held them to points on turnovers, and this time Boston College couldn't stop us from scoring when we turned it over. Obviously, we scored on the fumble, so huge win there. And then this is the second time we've been down 14-0 and we've come back. So Wake, now we were down 14 points at one half point, and then now this week 14-0 comeback. So it shows this team has resilience and fight, and we're finally getting, it looks like, things going our way.
Yeah, and I noticed, not to be real stat heavy like my man over here, but, I noticed that recently I saw that we are averaging 9.5 points in the fourth quarter. So that definitely shows that the team, keeps on fighting. I know that, may get bloated by some of our earlier games. But, that shows a resilient for sure. Another thing I wanted to point out with that first quarter is it seemed like we got off to a little bit of a rocky start with our penalties. We kept getting pushed back a little bit, and that it's hard when you're having those. We talked about that last week where you have those long third downs, so we had to overcome that. But they seemed to get a little bit of a tempo going coming into the second quarter. And like I was saying before, I think they were starting to see things and cracks in Boston College that they took into the second half with them, but they just couldn't execute those in the first half. So, we had some interesting play calls that led to those field goals, and we've talked about this, with being a lot more aggressive. But, Mills, what do you think about some of the fourth down plays we saw this past Saturday?
Yeah, so the one that kind of stuck out to me, and I think we were in our group chat talking about it in the second quarter. We get down there, and I think it's 4th and 2. We're within the, 5-yard line or something like that. And it's at that point where we saw it at I believe it was the Wake Forest game, that we went for it. We didn't get it. And we were like begging to go for it. This one, it's 14-6. I know it's a 1-possession game, but the game was looking like we needed points. So it kind of like a double-edged sword. Like, do you take that field goal to get to 14-9, or do you go for it? We went for it, didn't get it. I like the aggressiveness by Elliott, but sometimes it's like, when do you decide just to take the points? I think with our team, points are a must. So I was okay with it. It does make you second guess yourself sometimes. Like, hey, we got a good kicker and Will. Do you take the points, get to 14-9, or do you just sit there and go for it? Now we're 0-2 on those situations.
And also to add to that, our red zone conversion is pretty not that
bad.
great this year.
It's pretty bad.
And so, I would feel more confident making that call as we get better in those situations. But, right now, we didn't have much to gain from that. I think the risk reward that the terminology that we sometimes hear, that the reward didn't outweigh the risk on this one. And I think luckily it didn't come back to bite us. But, like I said, I think if they would have executed that a little bit different, the design that they had for that wasn't, I don't think, the best call.
No, it wasn't.
I'll disagree. I think it was the right play there. I just think we didn't get the ball out quick enough, or we didn't have as sharp of a route we needed to. Because all he has to do is shield that defender and catch the ball, and it's a touchdown. And then we're not talking about, oh man, should we have really gone for it on fourth down? So in the red zone, we were 3 for 5 this game. We had to settle. Again, we're settling for more field goals than we are touchdowns, or scoring touchdowns, which is difficult. That was, Ben, like you said, that was one of our best drives of the game. That was a 15-play, 81-yard drive. So that gets into that sustaining drives concept. We chewed off a lot of clock, and to come away with nothing was very painful. But, it ultimately didn't cost us. We would like to score that, get the touchdown there. However, I will say that shows trust in the defense. You're down on the 3-yard line, and you're like, if we don't score, the defense is going to bail us out. Well, what happened? The very next play, we almost had them stop for a safety. They fell forward. But then we gave up like a 20-yard play, 30-yard play right after. So that one hurt. But again, our defense, after we got down 14-0, they were bend, don't break, and they didn't break at all, and they dominated. So we'll take it from that point. But again, we want to see the ball in the end zone in those opportunities.
So my one issue with it, and Sean, you're right about it. The one issue is you got to come out with your best fourth down play. And I understand that, Green Jr. was open. He got to catch the ball to get in. But if I'm Calandria, if I'm Elliott, why are we not looking at Malachi Fields?
I think everybody in the stadium probably knows where you're going to, but it's also one of those things.
But look at it.
Beat me.
Yeah, but look at it. You go to I'm talking about, you go to your top receiver. You go to Jefferson. You go to your T. Higgins. You go to your Jamar Chases. You're going to your stud receiver, and that's who Malachi is. And I think that...
And if you're not going to throw it to him, why not run it?
Right.
With
AC.
AC, Kobe, or Brown.
Yeah, I agree with going for it, but the play call itself and not trying to get the ball to your best player on the field is mind-blowing to me.
I will say the only issue, it's not like we were on the 3 for multiple plays like we were in that, was it the weight game we were talking about, where we went for it and we weren't, or we kicked the field goal and people were begging for us to go for it. So this one we had just gotten there by a catch by Andre Green. That's a name we haven't heard, so it was good to see him involved. Obviously, it comes at the expense of Trell Harris and Chris Tyree being hurt. But, he stepped up, and you catch that ball. That's a huge...
Kind of disappointed you didn't clip my saying that I wanted a good game from Mr. Green Jr. Just saying. I called it last week.
Well, congrats. It worked. Just, let's not talk about star players that we're going to get in the transfer portal and then they enter the portal again. So
yeah,
too soon.
Too soon.
Well, with that, Sean, you started talking a little bit about defense. What did you really see the changes on the defensive side of the ball. So what I noticed was it seemed like the secondary was playing a little. They were giving them that space in the middle, and they were chewing us up, And it seemed like in the second half, we really started press Castellanos, trying to get him into the open field where he had to make those tough reads and passes. He's a smaller guy too, as well. So finding those passing windows is a little bit more difficult. And I question his hand size, not for any political references, but I question his hand size. He had 2 drops, very similar. One didn't account for anything because the Boston College recovered that one, but the second one, luckily we ran back for a touchdown. But, it seemed like there was some small changes. The secondary, I thought, stepped up and made the big plays when it mattered in the second half of the game.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ben, on the small hands, and I think we also forced him to make uncomfortable plays. Like he was trying to force things that weren't there, especially on that fumble. I mean, he had bad positioning, and I know he was trying to throw it, but at that point, you're guarded by 2 guys. A smart quarterback's going to just slide and just take the sack and live for another down. But the ball went our way finally.
Yeah, and I mean, our defense, so I don't know. I was looking at it, and we were playing some really soft coverage in the first couple drives. And, I mean, we were 8 to 10 yards off the wide receiver. I just feel like that's too much space. But also, if we talk about, we know our cornerbacks are a weakness, I guess giving the space is enough to we're going to give you the underneath throws. You're just not going to beat us deep. And then especially playing with the 2 safeties in the back with Sanker and Clary, we got those 2 guys back there that are really going to protect. So we're really trying to protect our cornerbacks and not let them get beat. And for the most part, it worked. I don't think there was too many explosive plays that they specifically got beat. Now, we allowed the tight end to roam free in the middle of the field a few times, which wasn't a good look. But, I mean, we were also giving up 21-yard runs in the first half. And, you can't expect to win a game when you're doing that. So big chunk plays are the ones you got to eliminate. And again, I mean, these are things that are just common sense, but these are the things that Virginia football has been known not to do well in the past. And so we really have to harp on it because Virginia has got to step up and do things better. So, and then to me, it looks like in the second half, in the fourth quarter, we really started winning the line of scrimmage. We started really giving Calandria a lot of time. Going back again to defense, that the lineman Britton got his hand up. He deflected that ball that Cam Robertson caught. So, or no, that was
Chico Bennett.
Yeah, Chico caught. So, I mean, that's huge. They always teach you if you're a lineman, you're getting pressure. If you can't get to the quarterback and he's about to throw your hands up and good things happen, and it happened there. So I think we started winning that battle that we talked about with Boston College. They were strong. So, I mean, they dominated the battle of the scrimmage against Florida State, and that's what everybody's like, oh, they just dominated that line. Well, we turned that around, and again, that played in our favor. We didn't allow them to score for the last 43 minutes of the game. So our defense, we talked about, had been suspect at times, really stepped up. And I think that was the key part of this. And defense definitely stepped up. And then, of course, Castellanos gave us some easy ones by turning the ball over a few times. And then I got to highlight our backup cornerback who got the interception, Kendron Smith. I felt like he played really well for being thrown into that position.
Gonna need him this coming up week as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, we need everybody who can suit up and is eligible. I got a couple years of eligibility, but I don't think they need like a placeholder or something. So,
speaking of defense, I think, big shout out to Jonas Sanker for being the defensive player for the ACC this week. I think that's kudos to him, being one of the top safeties in the league.
And I do want to bring that back. Sean, I think the first podcast was high on Sanker. I think he called him one of the best in the country.
Yeah, they definitely called him one of the best safeties in the country. So, we all got our perks and we all do our research somewhere. And Sanker's a name that we just keep seeing. And we put some licks on those boys out there too. We definitely looked to be physical, which it cost us Clary. I think he's banged up.
I don't think he's going to play for Louisville, which is going to be a big loss, especially with those 2 at safety, running those 2 high safeties. I think that it's going to be a big miss.
So, but you brought up Jonas Sanker. So his he had a pretty solid stat line: 4 solo tackles, 2 assists, and then that one fumble for 40 yards. So, I mean, that's again momentum changer, and you put us in the category of a team that scored on a fumble.
Yeah, so this game was actually a lot of fun to watch. I mean, I think it goes back to the name of the podcast, but this game was a lot of fun to watch. There was so many great moments in the game that you got to see. You got to see some guys shine in the game that we haven't seen all year. When we were talking about with Green, filling in there, we got to see some of the other some of the wide receivers stepping up, and there was a lot of key plays that just were really exciting to see. Sean, do you have anything to add about this game before we move on to Louisville?
Yeah, I definitely want to bring something in. So there's a name we haven't mentioned in the first 20 minutes of this, and that's Anthony Calandria. And I want to say the less we have to rely on him to win us games and be Superman, I touched on this last week, the better off we'll be. It definitely was huge. Now, he made a few mental mistakes that could have cost us. I mean, he got popped in that first half a few times. He took a few good looks, fell awkwardly. But again, part of that was the first half. The line was breaking down. He had to scramble. But my takeaway here is he did not have to be Superman. He didn't have to try to force the ball, even though we were down 14-0. He was a game manager, what we needed.
So that's my question I was going to ask you. You beat me to it. What would you say AC is? Is he a game manager or is he a game changer?
To be honest, I think it could be both. But he has to be the game changer when the situation calls for it and the risk is calculated. So we know he has some tendencies. He can get a little wild. He had a mental mistake. So we talked about we had it last week against Coastal when he scored to end the half, but he almost didn't. He had 1 second left. The exact same thing occurred in this game. He scrambled, realized he didn't have enough time, but and then he threw the ball away. The problem was he threw the ball away so high that it almost the clock was zeros in the stadium. However, they were like, no, there was about 1 second, almost 2 on the scoreboard. So they went back, looked at it, and said, okay, yeah, there's 1 second. We were able to kick the field goal to end the half. But that's something, you got to throw that ball at a receiver's feet. Skip it in there. Get the play dead. That would have saved us at least 1 more second, potentially, if we needed it. So it's one of those mental mistakes that we got to he's growing, he's learning, and that's one that we need to look at. But again, he didn't have to be Superman out there, and the more we can protect him, he did some more quarterback runs. He's got to protect himself a little bit, but the more we protect him and we give him a line and we don't ask him to be Superman, he can be great. I mean, you look at that ball he threw to Fields. That was a beautiful throw.
That was his best throw of the season.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolute dime. Just dropped it right in there.
I thought you were talking about one thing I saw with one of his other throws was when he actually stepped up in the pocket and threw that pass.
And made the throw, yeah.
One of his things is I feel like he sometimes gets out of the play a little too early, and we have nothing there.
And,
that comes with the line. When the line breaks down.
But I'm saying I think sometimes he gets out too early. And I know that the line's breaking down, and there is a time and a place for him to do that, and it's often with us. But how often is he jumping a little too early? And again, I'm not a quarterback. I don't play at that level, so maybe it's not fair for me to ask that question.
Ben, one thing I'll say, you brought it up during the game, was he felt rushed. We weren't getting offensive plays. We weren't sustaining drives. And then he finally found the tight end. He finally found his security blanket. And once he found Neville, we were able to put things together, put drives together. I understand Fields are our go-to options, but I do think that AC needs to find Neville and our tight ends, the security blankets, to get drives started.
You just can't get your tight ends killed.
Correct, and he does. And
he got Twitty lit up.
He did. One thing I
doubt Neville would get into Harvard after some of the hits that he takes.
I will say this from one of our ex-followers. He brought up that AC needs to protect himself when running. I do think that he's right we can't have AC just running and trying to make a play to get a first down, which, we love to see it. But if he took a lick, and if he doesn't stand up and shake those cobwebs off, like, at first I was like, man, he's concussed, he's banged up, and now we're looking at Tony Muskett. Like,
he came in and threw a first down.
He did, but like we all knew we're like, great, here comes Muskett, but we just can't have AC going out there and being reckless and putting his body on the line like that.
Yeah, well,
until we need it.
Yeah, when it's do or die. I think the ones that I saw, if my memory serves me correct, they were basically camped right there at the first down yardage. In the college game, whenever you start your slide, that is where they mark you down. So Correct. He had to get the first down. Maybe protect it. Maybe he thought he was a little bigger than he was. He thought he was going to try to run over somebody, but he took a lick, and I think one of them, they came out from underneath him and popped him in the chin a little bit. So it definitely was scary. That we're like, man, is this going to be the end of it? And then we're back into Muskett era.
I want to come back to the question that you asked about game changer, game manager, whatever. So I think last year he proved that he can, in certain situations, put up big numbers. That being said, he doesn't. We want him to be in a position where he just has to manage the game, and I think we have enough tools for him to do that. I don't know if he is that elite level where he is just what was I looking for? He's where he takes over a game. I haven't seen that quite from him yet, where he just can take over. I do think he's doing great. He's doing what he's supposed to do to get them to win, and I want to continue to see him grow. And I think he's being a little more patient. And I think he's a sophomore, so it's a good sign.
Second year, this UVA.
Oh, sorry. Well, anyway, second sophomore. Anyway, what I'm getting at finally is that he shows the capacity to be that guy at a higher level. So we just want to see him get to there when he needs to be that guy.
Yeah, and we're also not looking for a Heisman-like year out of him. Again, we are happy with winning games. The more we can protect him and we don't have to ask him to do all these things, it will come with time. He will be better and better. He will grow in the system. He is a second year. He's got a lot of time potentially in the system to grow. And I think, again, the less we have to talk about him, it's great. And I think he just played really well, complete game. Just got to slide a little bit more. But other than that, I mean, that's what we like to see. I mean, he doesn't need to throw for 25, 30, 3,500 yards for us in a season. I mean, we just need him to manage the game and we win. He doesn't have to be the guy on this team. He's got a lot of weapons that he can get the ball out to. And I'd like to see the tight end worked in a little bit more.
Well, I want to say the guys definitely delivered on homecoming. They delivered that product that we talked about. But I've got to say there's got to be a little bit of disappointment, from our fans in the student section, right, Mills?
Yeah, I'll give the fans an F. One, let's the students left in the first quarter. They hardly showed up. I understand we got a lot of rain, so the hill is probably muddy. I get that. But even in the stand section, it wasn't filled. There's also videos going out at the end of the first quarter. We're down 7-0, and they're just pouring out. Reports have come out that the frats had a darty lined up starting at 2 p.m. And I know all the Greek life. Sean, you're a part of Greek life, so you can kind of talk on it. But having those parties, those are big, especially at the UVA, the darties. And you got to do a better job of knowing that there's a football game at noon. Like, schedule your frat parties, functions at 4 or 5 p.m. Like, watching just a line of students leave at the first quarter and halftime, it's not a good look. And we brought it up. Do the players actually care? Does it bother them? You don't see it at the SEC level or the Big Ten level of these major programs. And I'm not saying we're one of those, but at some point you gotta support these guys.
Yeah, you don't even see it at our rival. That's one thing that you got to give them credit for is those people show up.
Yeah,
and with that, you're saying I think another tough thing was the 12 o'clock game. It looked like it was slow to fill up. So
This
it's
was
tough. It's tough to. They're trying to finish that last drink before they get in, I guess. But it's tough to get in and get
but
settled.
This
in.
is the lowest attendance that we've had in the last 3 seasons, and like I'm not counting the rain delay of Richmond or anything like that. It's the game of you're really, you got to get these students bought in, and I know I threw out some ideas of like, hey, if you stay the whole time, why not give them 2 beer vouchers for the next game? That if you're 21 and up, put it on their card. Give them free hot dogs. Do something. Like, these kids love food, love beer. You know what else? Do a point system. If you come to every home game and you stay the entire time, and when you leave, you swipe your badge, you're in a raffle to be picked to have free tuition for a year. Like, I'm just throwing, like, one tuition for the school. They can eat that. That's fine. Write it on our tax dollars. But the students have to show up. It's bad. And I know, Sean, you're a season ticket holder. I used to be. I didn't sign up this year, so I'm at fault as well. But you had to be, Sean, you weren't there, and I know that was a sore subject for you because you were eating birthday cake. But what were your thoughts of the student section and the fans?
Yeah, initially when the broadcast came on, watching it from the house, unfortunately, you could tell the hill was a little empty, and I'm like, okay, give it time, because typically the fans don't roll in there till 5 minutes till on the hillside. The hill doesn't really fill up till 5 minutes after kickoff. That's typically when it fills up, and I kept watching, and I was like, man, it's empty. It's empty. And looking at the numbers, I mean, from the official attendance was 38,285, which is about 4,500 off of what the traditional average is at home from earlier in this year. And we've had some really good games attendance wise. It's tough because we seat 60,000 to really fill that stadium up. Hopefully it starts turning our way. I mean, we got a good Louisville team coming in on Saturday, and hopefully we can get that stadium filled up and get it rocking. They're starting to push it out on social media more. Phil Scott. We defended home turf, Phil Scott. So we'll see if that comes to play. And I think, Greek life is going to be Greek life. They apparently got that much pull at Virginia to lower the attendance from a football game. And especially if they're getting talked about in articles that's why the attendance was so low from the student side. So, but hey, we got to move on.
Let me throw you a hypothetical out there. We beat Louisville. We upset Clemson. We're 6-1 coming into the next home game against Carolina. Do you see a sellout stadium?
I think a true sellout could be difficult, but
I'm
I think
taking
you trend.
50K over.
I think you see the attendance would be in the 45 to 48 range, maybe even 50. I mean, I think you would think now at 4-1, the Louisville game should start filling up. They're pushing $25 tickets. They're trying to get you there. They're doing what they can with the resources they have. You just got to get the guys and fans interested. We've been down for so long, and like you said, we haven't had a 10-win season in so long. We've been
only
battling.
Had one.
Yeah, and okay, so then even we haven't been bowl eligible in the last few years, so it's been a tough sledding. So when the Bronco era started, attendance was low. And every year the team would win more games, the fans would start coming back more and more. Now, they didn't have faith because once one thing bad happened, exit stage left, and they were gone.
Yeah.
So, especially at halftime. But I think in general, they're going to find a way. The stadium has the potential, and it sounds good. And I think the Hill is one of the most iconic spots to watch the game, and I think it's going to start filling up more with fans. And especially we got a Halloween game coming up, they're going to show out in their costumes, and it should be a good old time.
I think to add to that as well, Sean, is we don't really have a national identity as well, national coverage. And I think some of those Bronco teams where you did see, we were ranked at a certain time. So I would imagine if we are, undefeated in the ACC going to the UNC game, we'll be ranked then. And I do think that you would see pretty good attendance to that because we're getting talked about. I mean, it's hard to get.
I mean, shout out to the team. I mean, they received 7 votes on the coaches poll. We didn't receive any votes in the AP, but I like that. I like that we're still the underdog.
I do like us coming in not being ranked, even though when you look at it, Louisville was ranked, and the only team they beat was Georgia Tech. So you kind of look at it, and they're on a 2-game losing streak, and they were still ranked after their loss. The rankings don't mean much. We just got to finish for us. I mean, it would be cool to say, hey, we were 24 in the country at one point, but we just got to keep winning and just climbing up that ACC ladder. So
that game was also pretty good for recruiting too. I know they had some recruits there at that game. So
oh yeah, they were definitely announcing that the recruiting section was sold out this week, and they had no more room for that. So I don't know if that's all just coaches filling in or full-on recruits and families, but it looked good. I think that's a trend in the right direction. So we'll see what comes out of that. So a little early to tell.
Next up, Louisville.
So Louisville, coming off a 2-game losing streak, you have to be a little concerned with that, a team on the ropes. So I'm curious to know what you guys think of Louisville, and, do they have a big problem, or they just played good teams?
And I'll jump in here. I think, their first loss was to Notre Dame, a close one, 7-point game. Both were ranked in the top 20, so top 25 matchup. And then the SMU game, SMU's a sleeper. They got some studs out there, and it was a back and forth match. And from what I watched a little bit during the game, Louisville's quarterback is good. They got a lot of speed on the outside with their receivers. I do think that we talk about our secondary. This is going to be a real test. The guys from the ACC huddle even mentioned that, the speed versus Boston College versus Louisville is drastic. They got a couple of stud receivers out there. So it's going to be, can we control that clock against Louisville and put together drives that end up with points, scoring, besides field goals, getting touchdowns. But, how many big plays are we going to give up? How fast is Louisville going to score? That's going to be the key.
So I watched the Louisville SMU game, and that was two explosive teams and had a lot of speed. And some of the things I took away from that is Louisville, their offensive line gives them some time. And they got a pretty good quarterback back there, Tyler Show. So, he was given some time, but they have a lot of playmakers. Like Mill said, they got a lot of speed. So one thing I noticed from watching the game, they like to get the ball out to their playmakers pretty quick, and that's a lot of screen passes out to the flat, just getting the ball out quick. So I think that's something we got to be prepared for, getting ready for open field tackling, and that's where we can't sit back and have 8 to 10 yards of cushion against this Louisville team. So they had the ability to beat you deep, but again, it looked like they like to go through the flat a good amount. And then, they got a good running back with Isaac Brown. So he's got some good rushing yards on the year.
So we're going to have a battle of the Browns, huh?
It's going to be a battle of the Browns. And side note, Brown has got a new number coming into this week. They did some number changes. So
for special teams.
Yeah, special teams reasons. So, but their Isaac Brown was coming in 368 yards on the year, so averaging about 9 yards a carry. And then the one thing that stuck out to me on the defensive side of the ball for them, very physical. These boys were all rushing to the ball and laying lumber. And I think that's going to be critical. That's going to grind us down a lot in that.
Piggybacking off Sean, the Tyler Show guy, he's a double transfer, started his career out at Oregon, was a starter both years, and then he transferred to Texas Tech, and he had decent numbers out there in Texas Tech. So I will say that he's coming from two offenses that are very high power, very fast paced offenses, and it kind of reminds me of that Texas Tech offense. They're very fast. They want to get up to the line and get going. So.
Yeah, with all that being said, from what I'm hearing then is in order for us to see a little bit of success is really going to be us establishing the run game.
Yeah.
Because we have to
control the clock.
We have to keep our defense off the field. If this is a fast-paced type of offense. That being said, we're coming into this game with a lot of injuries, and we're missing a couple key guys that we really need. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the injury bug has plagued us tremendously. It's one of those things like Clary's probably not going to play. Chris Tyree's probably not going to play again. Terrell Harris is still day-to-day likely to play, they are saying. But he was like that against Boston College, and then we saw him in gym shorts and just a jersey. So I'm going to hold off and say Terrell probably might sit out again. They're not releasing what's going on with them. Chris Tyree's has a growing issue. Clary's got the knee, and we're definitely got the injury bug.
Yeah, we're pretty banged up. It's going to be a factor in this game. And again, that Louisville team is just all over the field is what it looks like. And I mean, again, they just have a lot of speed. And that's just from watching one of their games against SMU, which, again, we face SMU too, and they had similar stuff. We'll talk about that when we get to them. But my goodness. So my keys to the game for this one are probably going to be very, very similar. Sustaining drives. We got to protect AC from that defense. They blitz heavy. They were blitzing. At one point, they sent 8 and just were getting after the SMU. Now, it does leave them to vulnerability. If you blitz that many folks and someone comes in, it leaves the other side open. So AC has, I think that's going to be where AC can shine, is that when they blitz, he might be able to find a hole and break a run. Because once you get past their blitz, I mean, the field's wide open to you. And I think I was texting Mills because I was watching it, and I was like, hey, man, they blitz a lot. I think that leaves them open for the quarterback run. And then literally the next play I watch, the SMU quarterback, who also has some speed, broke off a huge run. So I think that does leave them vulnerable. So we got to protect AC, get the line ready for that, and then don't let their speed expose our secondary. Easier said than done. We got to protect our cornerbacks. We're going to have to play the safeties and next man up mentality. Whoever's coming in and stepping in for Clary, next man up. No excuses. It's Division I football. You're on a team, most likely a scholarship player. Let's step up and get it done. So
I think you're going to see a lot more zone coverages and too high safety, just so you don't get beat on the deep ball.
Yeah, we definitely got to protect the deep ball, but then you also got to protect the flats that they like to swing the ball to, and they got a running game. So I think our defense is up to the task. I think we've seen that our defense has responded and has been resilient all year. So we just need to get a faster start than Boston College. Because, I mean, if we start out slow against them, they may not hold up, and we may not catch up again or catch up to them with their speed and their talent. So it's going to be a good game. Again, like you said, they're coming off of 2 losses. I mean, no one likes to lose games. No one likes to lose 2 in a row. No one likes to lose 3 in a row. So I think that's going to be the task we have. So, and again, we keep talking every game. It's like, all right, well, this is the game we're going to find out who we are. I mean, this was a team that was previously ranked in the 20s. So it's, you know.
I mean, they were high as 15 at one point, so.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be a big game for us. And I think it's going to be a challenge, and I think the boys are going to be up to it. The boys on offense are going to have to step up and put points on the board.
Do y'all have like an early prediction on this?
I don't have much to add to what Sean is saying, but I before we get into the score projections, I do want to talk about the gravity of the game. So we're 4-1 right now, and I think the boys have to go into every single game like they're 0-5, 0-6 or whatever. So once I think they can start breathe a little bit, once they get to that 6-win mark. But man, being 5-1 with this many games left, that's a huge boost to their confidence and to the program. So, score prediction. So I was going to mention that. So we're talking about how Louisville has the capacity to really just run away, but Vegas is pretty smart, and they have it at 6.5 towards Louisville. So
jumped up 7.5 today.
Ooh, is that maybe because Clary's out, I suppose.
I think the injury report came out, and you are right. Vegas is definitely they're not really wrong often, are they?
I think they were wrong about the Alabama Vandy game. That one probably hurt.
Woof.
They can afford it though.
Yeah.
That's good for them, though. I think in the long run, you want to see upsets like that. That's good for good business.
A
for
lot
them
of upsets this past
That's
week.
good business for them in the long run. So,
Yeah.
But like I was saying, this might. I just don't know. I really don't know, Bills.
Do we cover? And I know you don't like that because at the end of the day, it's all about winning or losing. But if like on a betting scale, like if you're able to bet this game, would you take the points? 7.5 points. Would you take it?
I don't know. I think they're gonna get away from us on this game. So I think they'll beat us by 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
but it could go the other way. I really just don't know. But again, like I said, I'm not huge on us covering. I don't care if we cover. Our job's not to cover. Our job is just to win games.
We can't profit off of them covering, so we might as well go for the win and go for the overall record. And again, like Ben touched on, you win this game, that puts us at 5-1, and then that bowl eligibility is really right there.
The grabs.
And it's not going to. Hopefully, it doesn't come down to the last week of the season. So we talked about that last 4 games are really tough. I mean, we talked about there's 4 out of our 7 games as it sits right now. 4 of our last 7 games come against ranked opponents.
And you know what? Louisville was ranked, so like.
Well, no, they prior to their loss, so that I guess that was included. That's part of that 7.
No, because
so then it'll be 7 then. So you got
Clemson's ranked, you got Pittsburgh ranked, you got Notre Dame ranked, you got SMU ranked. So like you had 5 of our last 7 were previous ranked. So Louisville was previous, Clemson, Pitt, Notre Dame, and
I
SMU.
do want to leave like a glimmer of hope though right here is that Louisville, I wouldn't say is any worse than they were last year or any better than they were last year. They were a good team last year. They might have been better, maybe not. I don't know, but I know it's close. They're not. And we took them to the edge that on their home field. So we do have the ability to make this a good game and maybe walk away with one. I'm telling you guys, I'm not going to count BC as that unexpected upset, but we do have at least one unexpected win this year. Is it Louisville? I don't know. Would I rather be Louisville or Clemson? I'd probably rather be Clemson, but
yeah, on the road. So Sean, you're always the sunny guy on UVA athletics. So what do you think?
I think last week I gave my prediction of 34-24
Pretty close.
against Boston College. I had the point margin just 24-14, so which is good. I mean, I'd rather us only give up 14 points. I've had some people ask me what I thought this score was going to be prior to the podcast and trying to think about it. I coming up with a number. I mean, really, it's going to be within a score, and it's going to be if we can play a clean game. So if throwing out a number, I'll go 31-28 Virginia. I think we either kick a field goal to win it, or we hold them and defense steps up and gets the job done. So hopefully I would like us to not let them score that many points.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they have the ability to score points. But, again, some of their stats are flawed with who they played this year. And I can't look at their schedule like I did Coastal and say they played nobody.
I mean, they played SMU, played Notre Dame.
Correct. So their win is against Georgia Tech, and that was 31-19. And that's a pretty good ball club. So, but then they also played Jacksonville State and Austin Peay. So, one of their wins is Georgia Tech. So, yeah, I'll go with 31-28 Hoos. That deviates from my original prediction at the beginning of the year, but I think this team has showed us more than what we might have expected. So, yeah, I'm going 31-28 Hoos at this one.
Yeah, I think. Early in this year, I picked UVA to lose this one. I'm gonna say 27-23. I'd love for UVA to pull this one out and be with that exact score, but I think Ben's right. Louisville's a tough team. If we had to pick one team to upset, I'd love it to be Clemson at Clemson, but I'm gonna go 27-23 in Louisville.
Well, that's great. Great guys, with the scores. I do want to kind of just touch on this real quick. ACC hierarchy still appears to be intact with some exceptions. Duke dropped it to Georgia Tech. that's a pretty big loss for them. Virginia Tech finally got up on the board. They played a soft Stanford team. Sometimes I wish we had their schedule. UNC continues to falter. Wake Forest showed that North Carolina State's a fraud. SMU was a fun game to watch and a team to look out for. But I'm just actually hoping that they're just hot right now, and when we get them, they're a different team. And Miami scraped by again, so to maintain.
Thank you to the refs.
Yeah, it's again some more controversy with that, and Clemson continues to roll. They beat Florida State pretty handedly as well. So, if you guys have any quick thoughts on that, feel free.
Yeah.
What do you think some of these wins impacts us as well? So, what do you think about that?
I think the ACC is up for grabs right now. I think there are some outliers like us that are at top of the standings. Like this past week, a lot of people called it the perfect weekend to go apple picking. Everyone called it was a bad slate. Clearly, there was a bunch of upsets. Alabama losing, Tennessee losing, the Miami game at Cal. But this is like the week everyone's like, tell your wife, I'm not doing anything but watching football. There is a solid slate of football. You got the Red River Rival, Texas, Oklahoma, 1 versus 18. You got Penn State, USC. You have, I believe it's Tennessee, Florida. Then the marquee game, which I'm definitely going to be tuning into, number 2 Ohio State versus number 3 Oregon. 7:30. I think that's going to show who's going to win the Big Ten. Also, this could also be a potential of who wins the national championship. I think they're both solid programs.
Well, Mills, you mentioned a lot of teams and how they played last week, and I feel like you left out one team in particular. Do you want me to rip the Band-Aid off, or do you want to talk about it?
I'll rip the Band-Aid off. As you know, JMU alumni, we were a 16-point favorite against ULM. That is University of Louisiana Monroe.
Did you cover?
We did not. We lost the game. Thanks, Sean. It's it's like one of those things, like you have something good going, and, with the Dukes, they lost. I'll actually be at the game on Thursday playing Coastal, which I know UVA beat them.
Are we the best team in Virginia?
No. If you're going to go by and do the records, Liberty is, but Liberty also has the worst strength of schedule. So we can get on to that on another podcast of who's the best team in the state. No, it sucks for the Dukes. It just was a bad game, but you know what?
All right, time's up. The JMU minute's over.
Okay. All right, thanks. Just ripping off.
Who won the soccer game this
Well,
evening?
this was just recently a final. UVA beat a ranked Virginia Tech earlier this weekend, and then came to town a ranked number 8 team in the country, JMU, and UVA upset JMU. So back-to-back wins by ranked teams for the Who's. So they're trending now in the right direction.
Well, I wish we had a little bit more time. I would love to have jumped into the scrimmage. There was a lot of excitement around that. It looks like we have some good shooters this year, and from what I'm seeing, they might play a little quicker. I'm getting pretty excited about basketball season.
The Pac-Line defense might be gone. From the highlights of the game, it's a very fast-paced game that Tony Bennett is bringing. It is not. We're looking like we're bringing 2 to 3 on rebounds, like players. So I think we're going for this offensive play.
It's going to be an exciting basketball season, that's for sure. Got a lot to break down. Stay tuned for the full basketball preview coming up. So for now, as always, go Who's.
Go Who's.
Go Who's.